Welcome back. It's good to see you again, Richard.
Hey, it's good. We're more than halfway through March. Big week last week. We had the Ides of March, of course. St. Patrick's Day, of course.
Well, and here in our district, we had spring break. And
Spring break,
the kids were out, and I don't know that they're at all looking forward to going back, even though there's only one quarter left. There's only 9
more weeks.
School.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they're just about done.
Right. So, yeah, it's good to see you again. And looking forward to today's podcast.
Absolutely. So, last week we talked about a topic that we had mentioned in a seminar that we did for parents, talking about social media and technology with their kids. And, last week we talked about sort of the dilemma that parents find themselves in when they are, sort of work with their kids and tell them that their only job is to go to school.
Right.
We kind of went through some of that, and in discussing that, but also in the seminar, we presented this 168-hour solution. That's the name of the strategy that we use when working with families sometimes to help them structure time. And I think it's a really good tool that parents can use to help structure their kids' screen time.
Right. Yeah, we talked about it in the context of screen time. Two of the recurring questions when we did the seminar, parents had two recurring questions. Is number one, how do I limit my kids' screen time?
Right.
How do I do that? And then how much time do I give them? What should the limit be?
Right.
And of course, it's age dependent. But those were the two recurring questions: is how do I limit it, and what should that limit be? And when we explained it to parents, we explained to them that the problem that parents are dealing with, and I should say not just parents, adults are also probably, most adults are probably willing to admit that they're spending too much time on screen. Mm-hmm. So the recurring problem is the kids who have children, school-age children, have too much free time.
Right.
Now, and if they have free time, I can pretty much guarantee how they're going to use it.
Sure.
With all the devices that are available and all the information that's available, it's a reasonably good bet that if your child has free time, they're going to spend it on some kind of an electronic device.
Right. And when you look at the recommended amount of time kids should spend on what we would just call recreational screen time, mm-hmm. It's very limited. Parents are encouraged to, and I think that for most families, it seems, at least on the surface, as though, well, they're, kids under the age of 2 should not be on screens at all, right? Right. Kids between 3 and 6, maybe at the most an hour a day with the parent sitting next to the child.
That's right.
And above 6, because of the way technology is used today, the current recommendations is from 6 to 18. So this broad range, you're talking about no more than 2 hours a day of screen time. And so when parents hear that, and when kids hear that, there's some anxiety that starts to develop, because you are talking about taking a kid who's spending maybe 5 or 6 hours a day down to 2 hours a day.
Right.
Ideally, that would be great, but some parents find themselves having a difficult time. And I think you're exactly right that it's because kids have so much free time.
Right.
We're not doing a good job of filling their time with appropriate structure and activities.
That's right. Because the question becomes, why do kids have too much free time? Why do they have all this time? Of course, one of the reasons is because if children are not engaged in activities, either school activities or community activities or club activities like scouting or, lessons, if they're not scheduled, if they don't have things to do, and many children don't. I mean, Berney, how many times do you talk to preteen or a teenager, and you say, well, what do you do besides go to school? Nothing. You're not involved in any sports, no clubs, no activities.
And go back to last week's podcast. That's because parents tell them that their only job is to go to school. So that's
when you tell a kid your only job is to go to school, they'll happily take that arrangement because that frees up the rest of the hours of every day becomes free time. Okay, and so they're not engaged. The other thing you hear parents say, well, kids don't have homework anymore. Well, first of all, it's not the school's job to keep our kids busy when they're at home. I mean, that's not their job. Second, let's forget about the idea of homework as I have these assignments to do, because what parents can do is say, look, we're going to set aside an hour of quiet time every night. You can do homework, you can read, you can do, but that's all that's going to happen during this hour. Okay, I'm going to give you an hour or an hour and a half, depending on the age of the child. Most high school students should have at least an hour of homework a night. And there's always something that they have to do. Okay?
If it's not direct homework, it's studying. And even elementary school kids, they are all expected, for the most part, to read at least 30 minutes a night.
Right.
So, and it would be great if they were doing some other academics, math or something. And there's plenty of resources, free resources online to help them with that, like Khan Academy and things like that.
Right. Yeah, because you want to get away from that idea. Parents say, do you have any homework tonight? And the kid will say no. They may or may not, but they say no and say, okay, you have free time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you structure that hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, then you don't have to ask the question of whether they have homework. It's just built into your daily schedule.
Right.
Another thing is that many children are really raising themselves in the sense of they're allowed to isolate and separate from the family and do whatever they want to do, typically in their bedrooms. Many kids are allowed to spend many, many hours a day in the privacy of their own rooms. And I refer to this as children raising themselves. They're out of sight of their parents. Their parents don't know what they're doing, don't know what sites they're accessing. But it's tantamount to kids walking out the front door and just wandering around town or wandering around the neighborhood completely unsupervised. So there's a number of reasons why kids have too much free time. But that's the essential problem with electronics, is that kids just simply have too much free time to use. And they're going to spend it on electronics.
Absolutely. I mean, and why wouldn't they? I mean, electronics are very engaging, very stimulating, and it's a way to keep in contact and engage with your friends from school or not from school, people from all over the world. And games are fun. So we developed, and this was years ago, we developed this idea in the strategy called the 168-hour solution. And we call it that because there's 168 hours in a week, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 168 hours.
Right.
And what we do is we encourage parents to sit with their kids and talk about that. Look, there's 168 hours. There's no more, no less. There's nothing you can do to add more hours in a week. Right. And so we need to look at how we are spending that time. Once you waste an hour, that hour is gone. There is nothing else that you can do to get that time back. And so this has to be collaborative. It has to be done in conjunction with your child so that they can see and understand what you're talking about. With younger kids, it is a little bit more difficult, and you want to talk to them about it differently, because you're going to talk to a 6-year-old very different than you're going to talk to a 12-year-old. But nonetheless, you're going to sit down and talk to them. Now, I'm going to try to, if you're watching this through YouTube, I'm going to try to post a graphic so that you can sort of see how we structure this out. But the way that you start is you sit and you just list all of your weekly tasks, all the things that you do on a weekly basis. You go to school, you sleep, you are, eating meals, you're doing homework. There's this list of things that you are doing every week, and you want to list all those things down on paper.
Yeah, and you want to do it with your child. This is a perfect opportunity to use what Ross Greene calls collaborative problem solving. because you want your child to be mindful of the time that they have and the time that they're spending. And this activity forces them to think about what tasks they have every week and how much time they're devoting to those tasks, and then how much time they have left over for free time. Okay.
Right.
So it's a mindfulness, in a way, it's a mindfulness exercise.
Right. So as you're sitting with them, you want to, again, be very specific with things. So you might list things like sleeping, school, meals, personal hygiene. You know, some people spend a lot of time in shower. Some kids spend 30 minutes a night on showers, you know, so you want to list those things. Homework, church, sports or extracurricular activities, chores, general family time, anything that's sort of scheduled on a weekly basis. You want to sit and you want to list those things, and then you're going to identify about how much time you spend each week doing those things.
Right.
It's not, you want to make sure that you're very realistic when you're doing this, right? Because sometimes we'll say, well, you know, we go to school and, well, school is 7.5 hours a day. And so that's 7.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. Okay, that's, you know, that's whatever it is, 37.5 hours. Well, then you have to make sure that you're including travel time and that you're including preparation time and getting dressed time. All of those, packing backpacks, all of those things add minutes. And again, once those minutes are used, they're gone. And so you want to try to include them as best you can.
That's right. When you talk about school, there's two ways to do it. Either you can say, well, the first bell rings at 7 and the last bell rings at 2:30. Or you can say, my day begins at 6 a.m. and I don't get home until 4 p.m. Then school takes up 10 hours. And so you need to calculate it accurately, say realistically or accurately. You have to get accurate numbers, because frequently when youngsters first do this, they tend to overestimate or underestimate. Right. So you have to sort of guide their thinking and make sure that they're using realistic numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once you go through and you add all those things up, you have amount of time for each thing, you get a total sum. And in the example that we have up, that we'll have up on the screen, but just a number that we'll use for rough estimates, is about 150 hours.
Right.
So we came to that in a variety of ways. You would come to that kind of number, and that's a realistic number for a family or for a kid to have that scheduled time. It's about 150 hours that are occupied with scheduled activities, including sleep and school and everything else that we mentioned.
That's right. And this is your first clue. People say, well, how'd you get to 150? Well, it's not exactly 150. It's somewhere in that range. But if you're not near that number, if you do all of this and you're not close to 150, you need to add some activities, because you're leaving some essential tasks out. Either it's you're not spending enough family time, chore time, homework time. There's something missing in your schedule. If you do this activity and you only end up with 100 or 120 hours, you need to think about what you're not doing with in your family. And if you're an adult, you need to add something to your schedule. If you do this as an adult, and I would encourage adults to do it, and you end up with 100 hours, you're not doing enough. You're not busy enough. You're either leaving something out, or you're not busy enough. You're not engaged enough in real life. Right.
Absolutely. So again, hopefully we'll have on the screen a graphic so you can see this, but you add in all of your time. And then again, using an example for sleep, just again, being realistic, most people think, okay, well, we'll just put 8 hours a night for sleep. Well, so many kids sleep in on Saturday and Sunday mornings, right? So instead of just getting 8 hours, they might get 10 hours on those nights. Well, that's 4 more hours that you have to include. So instead of 56 or 8 hours a night for 7 days, you have 7 hours or 8 hours a night for 5 days, and then 10 hours a night for 2 days. And so that gives us 60. So we have these numbers broken down, and you get to this 150 figure. And so you start with your 168, you take away 150, And that means that your child is left with 18 hours a week for recreational time that they can use however they want to use it.
Right.
So that's about 2.5 hours a day.
Yeah, you're only talking about 2.5 to 3 hours a day of free time. I mean,
which is right where those recommendations are.
And that's exactly right. You know, we're told, as you said a few minutes ago, about 2.5, 3 hours a day, and that's about what you should end up with. If not, you need to rethink your whole schedule.
Right, and especially considering that many of those 2.5 or many of those 18 hours total for the week would be on the weekend. You know, that's where your time is less restricted because you don't have school those days.
Right.
Like that.
I did this with my girls I did this with my daughter when she was, I think she was in either late middle school or early high school. And we did this activity with her, and she ended up with 20 some hours a week and she said, well, what if I go to a friend's house for overnight? Okay. Well, you still have to sleep, so we're not going to count the sleep. But if you spend 5 or 6 hours, let's say you spend 6 hours on a Saturday at a friend's house, or you go shopping, or you go to a movie, and you spend 6 hours. Well, if you only have 18 hours and you take 6 on a Saturday, that leaves you with 12
right
for the other 6 days. And
right.
She was shocked. She said, my gosh. And I said, that's exactly what happens. You can't just fill your week up with fun activities because you just don't have the time. And if you do have the time, it means you're taking time from something else. Right. And that's the rub.
Absolutely. That's the big struggle. And that's how we get into these situations where, you know, it's the end of the week or, you know, some deadline is approaching and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have completely run out of time. I don't have enough time to get done what I need to get done, or I don't have, you know, the time just slipped past and you know, what did I get done? What did I do with all that time? This is an exercise that helps us recognize the ways in which we are squandering time, just letting that time pass and not using it the way that we should use it. And we're certainly not talking about, you know, having a timer out and you know, trying to be that strict by it, because that's just not realistic. You know, nobody's going to do that.
No.
However, when you're talking about rough estimates of time, you know, this is an important way to structure how you're living your life.
Right. And so you want to your goal is to make your children or yourself more mindful of the time that they have, that this is a finite commodity. It's only, you can't, you know, the clock is going to hit midnight and it's going to be 168 hours. You can't create more time, just like you can't create more money. Okay. Right. So what do you want your kids to learn? Why do you do this activity? Well, one is you want them to learn that they don't have as much free time as they think they have. You know, they think that, well, I'll just play video games. I have, you know, free time now. Everything's done at 7 o'clock. So I can just play as much as I want. I have as much free time as I want. I can spend all day Saturday playing video games or being on social media or communicating with my friends. You could use up 18 hours on a Saturday.
Right.
You know, so you have to get yourself and your children to a point where they realize you don't have near the amount of free time that you think you have.
Right. And I think that's so important, because kids typically think that they have much more time than they do. But the other piece is, you know, many kids are we'll just say time blind. Like they really have a very poor concept of how much time passes when they engage in any particular activity. You know, you tell them to read for 30 minutes and they'll act as though that 30 minutes is an eternity. You'll tell them that they can play video games for 30 minutes and they'll say, is that all? So, you know, they don't really have a concept of how time is really working and passing. And so what happens is, in my perspective, and certainly with a lot of the kids and families that I've worked with, what happens is, because kids don't necessarily know how much time they will get, because it's, you know, when families aren't structured with their time, kids will try to consume every moment that they can on their preferred activities. And so, and we did that too when we were kids. It wasn't electronics, it was other things. But any moment you had, you were trying to play with your preferred toys or whatever it was. Now it's video games and electronics. So kids try to squeeze every moment that they can out of it because they don't know how much they're going to get in any particular day. They don't necessarily know how restricted it is. So when you use a strategy like this, and they realize that they have this amount of time that in essence is dedicated, available generally on a daily basis, that lightens some of that. And so they know that, well, it's Monday. So on Monday, as long as I get these things done, then I have time to spend on my electronics, and I can spend, my free time is my free time. I can spend it how I want to spend it.
That's right.
What many families find is that lightens some of that pressure that kids feel, that I have to play video games every moment that I get because I don't know when I'm going to get them again. It lightens that because now they know, oh, I know that I have some time dedicated today because that is something that's in my routine, in my schedule, that I will be able to do that today.
That's right. Because one of the things that is in this 168 hours is free time.
Right.
And as long as you're taking care of your responsibilities, you have earned free time. Nobody's going to take it away.
Right.
You have free time. It's part of your life. It's part of your daily life.
Right.
And once they know that they can count on that, they're more able, they're more willing to do what they're supposed to do because they know that at the end, I have free time. I can count on that. Every night, I know that I can count on this free time to play video games or do whatever you want on social media.
Absolutely. And so then parents will ask, well, what do I do? What about when, if their grades are starting to suffer or they're not doing well in school? Well, then you look at your time menu, your time schedule, and you say, okay, well, your grades are not doing well. So that means we need to beef up this amount of time that you're spending on homework and studying. Right. So instead of 30 minutes a day, that needs to go up to an hour a day. That time has to come from somewhere. Free time is the time that's left. And so that's where the time is going to come from.
That's right. Yeah. If you're
not a punishment, I'm not taking the games and things away from you. It's just, we have to allot this time to accomplish these tasks.
That's right. Yeah. If you have 3 hours of free time every day, but your grades are slipping, then you have to adjust the schedule. But now you have a reference point and you have a context in which to make those adjustments. Right. Imagine how wonderful, how helpful this would be for a kid going off to college who, has been managing his schedule this way for all of middle school and high school. They've already been introduced to the idea that, first of all, you take care of your responsibilities and then you have free time. Right. And they go to college with that mindset, then they don't have that huge adjustment to make about how do I handle my own schedule.
Right. Absolutely. And I like what you said that, when you think about what kids gain from this, it is that there's not as much free time as they think that there is. And no matter what, and unless there's a situation, as you said a minute ago, where the kid just really doesn't have any responsibilities at all, they sort of live in the house as though they're a guest, it's just they're there and there's room service and, they're taken care of that way. Right. Otherwise, kids have responsibilities to the point where there's not that much free time.
That's right. That's right. And one of the things they should be doing is they should have regular chores. And we talked about that last week, and their age appropriate chores from age 2 on. So you have that time. You also have this idea that you're not a guest, the idea that you have to contribute. And parents will say, well, should I give my kid an allowance? Oh, no, because nobody else gets an allowance.
But not for doing chores.
Yeah, you have this house. You live in a house that has to be taken care of. There are common rooms and private rooms. You have bedrooms, and you have common rooms, and you have bathrooms. All that has to be cleaned by somebody. And nobody gets an allowance for doing that. You do it because you live there. And if you live with somebody else, people go off to the army and they have to clean their own barracks. It's the first time. No, you teach these things while kids are still at home. No, you don't get paid for taking care of your house or your belongings. Those are your belongings. They're your responsibility. You don't get paid for doing your own laundry. I've never been paid for doing laundry. So that's a false reality, is that you should get an allowance for doing this. If you need to make more money, there are other ways to do that. There are special tasks, and you can work that out in your family somehow.
Right.
The other thing we always stress with families is you need to get, you don't want children to have this idea that they only have one task. Because if you want to prepare somebody for adulthood, you have to prepare that person to assume multiple responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has just one job. Parents work and take care of a house. Parents work and take care of cars. And so you don't want to give kids the impression that they just have one task.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. We all have multiple things that we have to do. And many of those things are not necessarily things that we want to do, but it's things that we have to do to maintain our living space, or, maintain the lifestyle that we're trying to live. And we just have to. There's just not an option. Again, there are families where the kids kind of live through the house, and someone goes behind them and picks up things and cleans up things, and you're not really teaching your kids that they have responsibilities.
Right.
Because that's teaching them that they can do what they want to do, what they're naturally doing, and that somebody else is going to take care of all of the details. Right. Someone else is going to take care of the messes. Right. That's not how real life works. Real life works by, we all have multiple responsibilities.
Right. That's right. And we want kids, what we want them to learn is, first of all, you take care of your responsibilities, then you have free time. I mean, that's the equation. And I would advise parents to think of time and money in the same way. Right. You have this amount of time. You have this. Many parents work hard to teach their kids about money. There's this much money, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you only have a finite amount. And so they work to talk about money, but time is exactly the same kind of commodity. There's a finite amount of it, and you have to use it wisely. You have to be careful and mindful about how you're using your time.
Absolutely. So the 168-hour solution is, there's not a perfect solution to fix all of our woes, but we have found that this is a very effective strategy for most families, or for many families, to help them structure some of that time, answer those questions, as you said, answer those questions that are kind of tough to answer, as far as how much time should I allow them? What is the right amount of time? How do I limit it? How do I, what should they be doing? It's a nice way to structure it. And again, you emphasized it earlier, when you do it in a collaborative way, when you're sitting down with your child and talking them through it, right, being realistic about the time, they will recognize, they will be able to see it. I mean, they're concrete numbers. I mean, right, there is no more than 168 hours. There's nothing you can do to get more.
No matter how hard you squeeze it, you're not going to get any more than 168 hours.
That's right. So give this strategy a try. Let us know how it works for you. We're always looking for more strategies, more ways to help with these kinds of issues. But we find that anytime you can have the opportunity to work with your kid, avoid conflict, avoid arguments, avoid just being in a situation where the parent is dictating to the kid, this is just what it is, because that's just to create conflict. Whenever you can avoid that, but still get the outcome you're looking for, that's all the better.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this week. All right.
See you next week.
I'll see you next week. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.